Hello everybody, CritCrab back at you with another story, but before we get into that, I would actually like to publicly announce a homebrew that me and my close bro Evil DJ Dude worked on. It is actually a subclass for the Warlock. It's currently in what you would call a beta testing sort of state, and if you would like to pick it up, maybe give it a read through, then please do check it out. The PDF is in the Discord. Anyways, back to the story. This one is actually something of a sequel to the last story and is very much like it but on steroids. Roll post. Okay, so I'd mentioned two stories in passing in my Railroaded to Incompetence post, the video before this one. The time the GM Tim made his own party and made the players watch his side characters, and the time he neckbearded it up by making a game based in fairy tale and turned the cringe factor up to 11. After talking to a few people who were involved, it turns out these two games were the same game. First things first, I wasn't in the fairy tale campaign. I'd already resolved not to play in Tim's campaigns after the gang war incident in Railroaded to Incompetence, but I kept close enough tabs on him after the Gamers Club, called the Gamers Guild, original, right? Realized a lot of potential new members were getting turned off to RPGs due to a series of really crappy games being hosted. It turns out the Shadowrun game wasn't the first time he just gave up on a setting a few sessions in. In fact, he apparently did this for every game he was in. He'd run it or play in it for a session or three, then start a different game after losing interest. I had to wonder why people kept playing with him, but we found out that the only ones who were people who never had exposure to him or the RPGs in question before, just like us during the gang war incident. All the guild's new members were leaving because they thought his methods were the norm. They were not. Now, this specific story has no need of specific characters to understand. This is about Tim and the one time he stuck with the game long enough to finish a story arc. A story ripped straight out of an anime. So, the game started with him pitching his premise, a Mages Guild game, one where everyone played a 6th level spellcaster as a minimum in Pathfinder, and an assurance to everyone involved that there was a ton of lore to reference for the setting. He thought he was being slick and subtle, but a week or so earlier he'd already recruited the party of players based on whether or not they knew about the anime Fairy Tail, so it wasn't anywhere near a surprise. Anyway, the game starts as you would expect. The players arrive to be faced with a grown man wearing Lucy waifu type shirt and a mountain of manga next to him, sitting proud and confident. He was subtle enough. Apparently, he was mildly disappointed that they saw it coming, but he didn't flip his crap or anything. The game starts almost where the show does, the player party arriving just after the anime's main characters did, and witnessing all the show's wholesome shenanigans. He had the players' attentions well enough, and things seemed lighthearted and fun. They were just learning to RP, and since it was an anime these players had seen, it seemed like they had very little struggle getting into their characters' shoes for the first time role-playing. They even got to interact with their favorite characters, and DM didn't get too weird with it. Already a better session than Shadowrun. That didn't last long. One of the players apparently was a bard of sorts and saw the perfect opportunity to flirt it up with anime chicks. So he goes character to character figuring out who he was gonna woo, and soon the railroad reared its ugly head. Bard. Ha! Nat 20 diplomacy to flirt. That's 28.
How blushy does Lucy get?
Tim. She doesn't, and ignores you. Bard. That doesn't seem right. Tim. She can't be into you, because her romances and lack of romances were in the show already. The bard didn't really get it, but he got kind of mopey because he rolled very well and delivered a great line, but was shot down by the GM, not even the character. Turns out the GM was saving her for his self-insert character later, allegedly. This was just a small hint of what was to come. Soon they went on quest with the show's main characters, but every time they tried to change the outcome or have a hand in the events, he shut them down with some natural occurrence that kept them from getting close enough. Or he just straight up told them that they missed critical rolls or that enemies made saves they clearly didn't because there's still X number of episodes before he gets beaten, or no, that character dies later, remember? The campaign culminated to the players standing on the sidelines and listening to the GM doing dramatic readings of the fairy tale script and not being allowed to change anything. Talking to the player who was that bard, I asked him how long it lasted. He told me the campaign went on for months and he was the only one from the first party to keep playing RPGs with other groups after. Yeah, you read that right. First party. This game was so unreliant on players that whenever people stopped coming, he got a new party together to pick up where he left off. There was apparently times when he only had 2 players, and he was still comfortable running the game because the players weren't the driving force in the game. The info from this point forward is sparse because I couldn't find anyone who was in it, but apparently it continued on to him changing outcomes of stories and calling them twists while stopping players from making their own twists, and spending an uncomfortable amount of time role-playing his favorite ships, as in relationships, and then, after stonewalling players from changing the plot, eventually adding his own original character who was levels ahead of the party and who would be oh so cute and powerful, straight out of a fan fiction he wrote, I'm guessing. So yes, the longest game he's ever run was a game where the party is inconsequential and totally unnecessary. TLDR, Tim ran an Animu game and told everyone to keep their hands off his headcanon, and then self-inserted to touch himself. End post. Anyways guys, that concludes today's video. If you enjoyed this video, then please do leave a like, and if you want to see more videos by me, then by all means please do subscribe to the channel. Till next time.